in boredom, what we might call boredom, arises this need for constant stimulation, whether it be eating, checking our phone, reaching for some sort of drink, some sort of conversation, show. Just there's endless amounts of things that we're constantly reaching for on a daily basis, and I guess I just want to explore that. When is it too much? Is it blocking me from experiencing the peace that I asked for? Um, yeah, just basically,
Mm.
yeah. I was painting yesterday, and I just found myself like, every 10 or 15 minutes, I was just like, oh, I want to go nibble on something in the kitchen, or I want to, change the show. I want to like jump on my Instagram,
Mm.
and I feel like without those distractions, I would live a little bit more with a little bit more ease and a little bit closer to source.
Yeah, yeah, it makes me wonder if we always had these types of distractions. Like,
Right.
was Van Gogh like running downstairs to, you know, try to catch a mouse while he was doing his paintings, or
Right.
what were the distractions like back then? Obviously, now we have electronics, we have the internet,
Yeah.
we have our phone, we have a million distractions, maybe. But do we really have a million distractions? That sounds like an exaggeration.
I could probably come up with a good 1,000.
Uh,
You know, I could probably come up with a lot,
yeah.
a lot of distractions.
Well, the mind is easily distracted.
Mm-hmm.
We constantly seek stimulation. Even when we're in the flow state, though, that shouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're in this flow state, when you're in your painting and you're really in the flow state, I don't think anything will distract you.
It's true. It's true. It's just a matter of how long you can get that to last.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm like assuming that takes a lot of training.
Kind of depends on the subconscious cycle that I'm in. Have I been checking things a lot this week, like social media and things like that? Am I in a state where maybe I'm reading more and I'm a little bit more like sattvic, a little bit more just into what I'm doing? Um, so yeah, I feel like it just has a lot to do with something that I don't even fully grasp as far as my state. You know.
What's coming to my mind is invasive thoughts.
Yeah.
If you are attempting to do something and every time you get an invasive thought, you act on it, then you're going to constantly be distracted by whatever comes into your mind.
Right. It's like a muscle almost of having that thought come up and just peacefully sort of escorting it out, like almost like a pop-up ad or something.
Right.
And just peacefully like declining it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you have to do. There are people who are just stuck in an endless chain of thoughts and can't do anything at all. They can't even start their project.
Right.
They're thinking about the project being finished before they've even started it.
Right.
Which is part of the problem.
Right. Yeah. I always say with painting, it's about don't think about getting all your paints out and all your palette out and the canvas set up. Never think about that stuff. Like you have to just one thing at a time, just do it knowing I'm going to be painting in, a couple minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It's almost like you have to just do it. I've seen so many people get discouraged because they're thinking, oh, I have to go get my paint, put all this paint out. So it's kind of like a life lesson in and of itself, not to overthink before you do something.
Yeah, I mean, certain things take preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're a mechanic, you probably want all of the tools available for you.
Right.
But then again, a lot of mechanics are angry. They're working on their car, the car, and they're pissed. They're throwing wrenches. They're they're breaking a sweat. They're yelling. It's not an easy job. Do we distract ourselves because we want the distraction, or is it because we have no control over these distractions? Like where are we losing control?
Yeah.
And how how much of it is something that we're doing to ourselves compared to something that actually needs our attention.
Yes.
You know, obviously, if you isolate yourself somewhere and there's nothing to distract you, you won't be distracted, right? But if you
That's a good question.
If you leave your phone on, if you know you are, you know, scrolling on your Instagram and then you forced yourself to start painting because you know you have to, you know, sometimes there's like a child inside of us that doesn't want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
So that child is going to look for things to distract itself. And the next thing you know, you're listening to that inner child instead of listening to yourself, where you're like, I have this project that needs to be done now.
Yeah.
I have no choice. Somebody commissioned me to do this painting. So, you know, maybe the child is like, oh, well, I could still get in a quick video game. You know, oh, the paint is drying right now.
Right.
I'm gonna buy something on eBay real quick.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is. But yeah, I think, you know, we have to be brutally honest with ourselves. Is it a need for distraction, or is it a want for distraction? You know, we interchange the needs and the wants to shape our egotistical desires. So we have this desire and it becomes a need, but it's not really a need. You know, I counsel a lot of couples and they'll be like, one person is always like, so-and-so isn't meeting my needs. And the first thing I always say to them is, you have too many needs. They usually don't like that. You know, people are very protective over the things they think they need.
Definitely, yeah.
So a lot of people think they need distractions.
Yeah, especially like when your phone might be a source of making money or something. That's a big excuse that I use. Like, oh, I have to check my phone 7 times within the last 10 minutes because I make money on here. Somebody might send me an offer for something, or somebody
like
might.
it can't wait.
Right.
Meanwhile, you're like out to dinner with somebody, and you're checking your phone, and they think you're being rude.
Right.
But you're like, yo, time is money, baby. I gotta get this money.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is, and it's not, I guess, right?
Is money a distraction?
It's from God, I guess, from source. Yeah. You know, because it is a material. It is like a grounded thing in this reality. There's no money in other dimensions.
Right. It distracts you from your purpose in a way, because now your purpose has become money.
Right.
You know, if everyone's purpose is money, we're not going to get a lot of stuff done here.
Right.
You know, your purpose is making artwork, right?
Yeah.
My purpose is helping people with health issues, physical and mental. Yeah.
So you have to make it align. If the money aligns with what you're doing, then it's not really a distraction.
Yeah, if you're not focused on the money, like if somebody comes in and I have no relationship with them, and I'm like, they're a United Healthcare patient. Yeah. You know, I know how much money I'm gonna get. Like, I wouldn't want to go to that person. I would want to know that that person genuinely cares about me. Right. So I try to do that and be in alignment with my purpose. But not everybody. I know a lot of people who are just strictly driven by money. They're willing to do literally anything for money. Right. Including something they absolutely hate. Yeah. So in that situation, money is a distraction. You could be distracted for 10 years because you took a job for the money. And then you wake up 10 years later and you're like, I don't really know what my purpose is.
Well, there are lifetimes of distractions. And, like, I have the personal belief that you're going to keep repeating a certain level of living in sort of a human or whatever you may be in experience until you express the creativity that you were meant to express. That's something that I really have felt. I feel that when I release a painting or just anything creative that I put out, because there's this sense of true purpose in that, as opposed to working the job, getting the money that you need to eat. You know, there's to see somebody sort of keep continuously working and making that an excuse to, I don't have enough time to sit down and write poetry, or I don't have enough time to whatever you like are interested in. Everybody has something that they like, even fashion, just anything, like anything that you might like. It's like, so in that case, money would be a distraction, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it takes you away from the passion that you have. Like, who's really passionate about numbers? An accountant, an actuary.
It's stimulating.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
I guess it's watching numbers go up.
Right, it's stimulating.
It's actually,
God, look how much it went up.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of, it's very primitive.
Right.
When you think about it, just watching numbers go up is what gets you off.
Right. It's like watching a chase or something. It's so.
Yeah, I mean, I know people who check their Robinhood account like all day, and they're like, I'm up $7, and then tomorrow they're like, I'm down $14. Like, it's literally distracting them from living any type of normal life. That's crazy to me. But there's a lot of people out there right now on the road with you, driving, who are, distracted by numbers, by money. Maybe they're checking their bank account constantly. Maybe it's because of survival, which I get, but that's actually taking you further away from the likelihood of survival. Like, you're not going to survive, and you're definitely not going to thrive when you're distracting yourself from your purpose with all of whatever it is you're using to distract yourself, But that leads me to believe that maybe people are afraid of their purpose.
That's a deep question, man. It's a very deep question.
Are you distracting yourself constantly because you have fear of success? Fear of succeeding at your purpose. Because maybe there's a lot of responsibility behind all of that.
Yeah.
Responsibility of you being good at it, right?
Right.
What if you have a purpose that you're not good at? Or you're not good at it yet?
Yeah.
Right? But maybe 25 years from now, it'll really look like that was your purpose all along.
Yeah.
Because you put in 25 years worth of work to get to a point where your purpose now had value.
Yeah. Dude, I really like that hit. Some people are afraid of their purpose, and that reminds me of like a lot of the greatest painters will say, steer away from preciousness when you're painting. And that's like when you have this painting that you're like, this needs to come out amazing. Like, every aspect just needs to be dialed in. And if you actually do that a lot of the time, you'll get the opposite effect. Right. Whereas if you just do the painting and you're very like, red's over here, yellow's over here, you do it in like a more relaxed way, like, I don't really care too much if it comes out great, this is just the process. The painting will actually come out amazing.
Yeah. Which
is like, you could really think of that in a metaphorical sense and apply it to your everyday life.
It is a metaphor for life, absolutely. Yeah. I actually was talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, a lot of times I start things, and because I feel like it has to come out perfect, I'll end up like throwing it out halfway through and starting over, and I feel like I'm just always starting over on these projects.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, I would draw things and I would like crumble it up and throw it away because I knew I could do better.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good enough.
Yeah, the preciousness. It's too precious to you. So it's like you just can't handle it. You have to throw it out. That's so like fascinating that we do that,
Yeah, we probably do that with so many things that we don't even realize.
Right.
We probably do that with people as well.
Sure.
I have to be perfect for this person, and because I wasn't, I have to cast them out of my life now out of the fear of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Definitely a possibility.
The fear of embarrassment. I was thinking like...
the fear of not being good enough.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
I'm not good enough for this. Therefore, I must destroy
I just need to rid myself of it.
Yeah, and that all boils down to a matter of low self-value and low self-worth, actually. That's actually where this perfectionism perfectionism comes from.
Mm.
It's actually low self-value that creates the perfectionist, because they're seeking this perfection outside of their self. Like, I'm gonna make something perfect.
Yeah.
But it's not something like within them, you know? If somebody has high self-value, then they're gonna think that whatever they made is as close to perfect as it could be. You know, they're not, it's a different vibe. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
Different vibe.
Yeah.
Like, this podcast is not perfect.
No.
You know?
It doesn't have to be.
I'm not going to try to make it perfect.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
So I understand that you moved into a new place. How's that going?
It's beautiful, man, you know? It's a mix of things. It's just 50-50, you know, simultaneous. This is amazing. Like, look at this, you know? I lived with my brother, so I almost didn't get to be my own person. Like, there's an Alan Watts quote that's like, when you are living around somebody, you're almost not allowed to be who you are, something like that. Like, they don't, people are constantly telling you who you are. That's the quote. So I feel like I'm finally able to live in a space where I get to, you know, do things on my terms. I get to have the place smell the way I want it to smell, look the way I want it to look. Like, you know, just the obvious things you get when you move into your own place. And it's huge. It's a huge cornerstone for me.
Well, people tend to see you the way that they want to remember you. So if, like, your brother, his memories of you might be of you from when you were growing up with him, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like, maybe you were a certain way towards him early in life, and he really holds on to those memories, therefore he only sees you the way that he wants to see you.
Right, like, he put me in a box of who I am, and it's like now I couldn't grow around him, you know? I couldn't act a certain way. And when I did grow at all, it might have made him uncomfortable, therefore I would limit my growth. I'd be like, well, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that?
Yeah, that's interesting. No, it's true, because it's a difficult energy to navigate, because you might not want to make them uncomfortable, but it also might be too much work for you to convince them of who you are now. Where you're just like, it's not even worth it. If you haven't paid attention up until now, for me to prove to you who I am, like, you would have to really pay attention, and I don't think you're capable of doing that.
Right.
You know, so we kind of just.
Yeah, it's really interesting living with somebody because you're so close to them all the time, yet after a certain amount of time, it's almost like you can't even talk anymore. Like, you're not speaking the same language at some point. That's kind of how it felt. Like, I can't even talk to this person anymore because we're just there. Like, it's right, there's no room to, like, talk because you're right there all the time, you know? So it's almost like there's no space to actually talk anymore. It's a really interesting, it feels like a phenomenon, you know?
It is a phenomenon. If you look into the book The Tao of Relationships, you know, it's about male and female relationships, but space is actually what creates closeness and togetherness. Like, without that space, without missing somebody, what do you really have to talk about? You know, if you're eating with them, going to the bathroom with them, waking up, and then you're bumping into each other in the hall, like, what is there to talk about at that point?
Yeah, it's tough.
You know where he was all day. You know, he knew where you were.
Nothing, yeah.
There's really not much going on there.
Yeah.
Unless you both live, like, these extremely interesting lives.
Right,
and,
yeah.
you know, you're interested in each other's lives. But
Right.
if you're just living the regular, mundane, I go to my 9 to 5, he goes to his 9 to 5, you know, we're fighting over the microwave or whatever.
Right.
I'm not saying you use a microwave, but
just to go back to what you just said, it's actually like now there's more interest in each other's lives, and I can tell he has more interest in my life now for just him reaching out and this and that, because there's like this mystery of like what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah.
What's, you know, whereas now there's more for me to like share and kind of the growth is exciting now, as opposed to me just being there, like you just said. You're right.
Well, that void is actually what creates the questions.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Just like, the universe, if you could look into, there's like great voids in the universe, right? Recently, they even discovered that black holes have energy that pulls things into them, right? And I think that they discovered that there was a whole universe or galaxy, not universe, there was a whole galaxy inside of a black hole. It's a theory, right? So within that void, there's actually a tremendous amount of information just ready to be revealed. That's something that a lot of people are afraid of, is the void itself. And I don't blame them. It seems scary. Nothingness seems scary, but out of the nothingness is where everything comes from.
Right.
Right? There was nothing, and then there was something.
Yeah.
So everything, down to the most basic human interaction, has a microcosm of that within it.
Yeah.
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 So, but do you like the new place, living alone?
So far, I do. Yeah, so far, it's great, You could just, like, laugh to yourself, You could just put on what you want to watch. You could, it's beautiful, I had to set up a little nice spot in the sun for myself the other day to paint and hang out. I was like, sweet, this is my life right now. I'm set up in the sun. What more can I ask for,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like the simple things that make things worth living,
Right.
So, what's the worst part about living alone?
That's a good question. I mean, nothing crazy, nothing where it's like I have to run out of the place and go, I'm like freaking out in there, like nothing like that. Just like little things, I suppose, of like they all come from a place of like from lack, where it's just like, oh, I should have this, I should have that, I should have a partner here, I should have whatever it may be, like even friends over, or like why am I just here alone? And it's not really a productive thought, because you should just accept where you are. I should look around and see all the good things, but there's always like that inner voice of just like, how'd you end up here alone? Just those like negative voices that come up.
Yeah. I think it's very important to have a dialogue with yourself where, yes, those thoughts might come in, but we don't want to focus on those thoughts. We want to focus on what we actually do want. People spend hours and hours of their day thinking about all of the things that they don't want. Like, I don't want to be alone. Well, what are you thinking about? I'm thinking about being alone. I'm thinking about the fear of being alone. I'm thinking about why I'm alone, if there really is a reason. Right? It could just be a coincidence.
Yeah.
Sometimes things happen that are out of our control. We can't even explain.
Well, it's an opportunity, if anything, being alone. Yeah. It's an opportunity.
Well, they say that, scientists, they say that through isolation is where we have our most profound ability to transform.
Love that.
We could change habits and behaviors. We could go within. We could look at ourselves, at our lives, and actually make the changes that we need to make. That maybe when you were living with your brother, that energy was holding you in that container where
without a doubt,
you couldn't really take the next step. Maybe you didn't want to take the next step in life without him, subconsciously, because you knew you would be leaving him behind.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
You have to really feel into it.
It's seeing being alone as an opportunity. It can be hard. Just, I feel like some of it has to do with social media, for having like FOMO, like you just see a video of people partying and you're just like, why? It's weird that I'm not just out every night partying, like hanging out with people and like I don't know, is that like part of our culture? That you know, is that like, is that just something society's projecting onto us? Like,
well, they're trying to project that onto us, and it depends on how you associate with it.
okay.
So if you see people partying and you associate that with great fun that you're missing out on, then yeah, it's going to feel bad. Personally, when I see people partying, I associate it with how they're going to feel after the partying, right?
Sure.
Oh, you're out getting drunk and, you know, dancing all night or whatever. Yeah, that's fun sometimes, but living a life where you're doing that every single night is debilitating, and it's actually it's more like punishment after a while than it is pleasure.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So if you associate it more with pleasure, you feel like you're missing out on this pleasure.
Yeah.
But you're not really thinking about, wow, maybe that guy got into a horrible fight with that girl before the end of the night, or maybe, you know, that girl woke up with such a bad hangover that she had to take, you know, 6 ibuprofen, or maybe, you know, she got thrown out of her parents' house, or maybe the cops came to the party and broke it up. You know, we don't really know what else is happening in life. We're just seeing one frame of their life, and associating it with all of these beliefs that we have in our mind as if they are somehow true.
Right.
But we have no idea what's going on at that party at all. You know, you what if you associated it with one of those mass killings, you know, shootings at one of these parties? You know, you would never want to go to a party.
Right.
Right? So it depends on how you associate it with.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to associate every social outing with a mass killing, but
I wouldn't either. But I'm just using that as a crazy example, you know? That's where neurotic and schizophrenic behaviors come from, because they are associating things with the worst case scenarios.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They have
Paranoid.
severe paranoia. That's what paranoia is.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't really even thinking about drug-related outings necessarily. I was just thinking, like, in general, like, sometimes it just feels like I'm not doing enough, you know, like, I should be, like, involved in this and involved in that, and even, like, getting involved with people on a day-to-day basis, I'm sort of realizing my, like, reservations with that, and I'm just trying to dive deep into, like, why is that? Like, why don't I want to get to know the person that I just, like, ordered food from at the pizza place more? Like, why, like, so, you know, sometimes there's those days where you're like, oh, you know, I'm feeling social, like, what's up, you know, and there's those other days where you're like, give me my pizza, like, I want to go sit down, you know, and a lot of the time I'm trying to make those observations. Is there something wrong with you if you're not, like, involving yourself in a positive way with your community, you know? Is there something wrong with that, you know?
I think there's something sad about that, that, you know, we have these opportunities to interact with people and maybe know a little bit more about their life, or just ask them how they're doing, but we choose not to for whatever reason. Maybe you've done it before. You've reached out and said, hey, are you having a good day? And the person just gave you the cold shoulder, and now you have a fear of doing that again, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, we all have these sometimes it's very spontaneous. I'm going to have this conversation with the person behind the counter.
Yeah.
You know, it is interesting, though. Like, is it appropriate to do that all the time? I mean, maybe we're in a hurry. We have to be somewhere at a certain time, you know? So it's hard to know the benefit versus, you know, like, where is that going? You know, are we missing out because we didn't talk to our Uber driver?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know.
And I feel like we know, like, as adults, like, the more that you get to know people around you, life does get better. Like, you know, what if me and you never talked? It's like that type of thing. And I guess that's kind of like what I feel is the whole, like, oh, like, I don't know what opportunities would have come if I, you know, talked to this person, but I don't know, it's you know, is it like the universe just being like, it's okay. Like you don't have to embark on this right now. You know, it'll feel more natural when the time comes for you to talk to this person.
I think the people who go around trying to talk to as many people as possible, those are the luckiest people. They always like, and then you look at them and you're like, how did so and so have such a great opportunity? Well, probably because he wasn't afraid to talk to just about anyone.
Yeah.
You know, I think about those people. I can, you know, people come to mind. You know, the people who are just willing to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
Those people are actually they're usually successful people. I think.
Yeah.
You know, so
I love that.
Yeah, so you know, I would ask why is it such a burden for me to, you know, strike up a conversation with a stranger?
Right.
I mean, do you feel that it's a burden sometimes? What does it feel like?
That's what I'm trying to sort of feel into myself is, you know, and I have my reasons, but then they kind of like fall flat. I'm just like, you know, I just don't feel like it right now. Why don't they ask me something? I look interesting, you know. Why doesn't it? And sometimes people do. I've, you know, made some friendships that way. It feels a little bit better, I guess, when somebody approaches you, because then there's a little bit more like, oh, all I have to do is just answer. Like I don't have to like take that step of making the first move. All I have to do is just be my genuine self now.
I think like the art of reaching out to people is extraordinary.
Yeah, me too.
I think that the most ordinary thing to do would be to not interact.
Yeah.
You know, to just go about your daily routine with no interactions. Go to the grocery store, get your stuff, go home, put on your TV. A lot of people are living life like that, where they may have one or less human interactions in an entire day.
Yeah.
Then you have people who might have 100 or more human interactions. That to me is abundance. Like, how do you have abundance only talking to one person in a day?
Yeah.
You know? So if anybody is out there curious about why they don't have abundance, your network is most likely extremely small.
Yeah.
And your network, it doesn't have to be, I know all of these people on a deep, intimate level. Someone could barely know you and just know a little bit about you, and the right person could be there in the right time, and they could say, hey, you know, I heard of a great acupuncturist. Maybe give this guy a call. He seemed like a cool guy. That's how your network grows. So without that, I think a lot of people are truly missing out.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. It's also easier. I kind of also tell myself, like, there's no genuine interest here, as opposed to, like, I love thrifting, and when I see somebody at the thrift store and I could just, tell they have some cool stuff, it's way easier for me to be like, yo, would you, you know, I'll just talk to them easily, you know, like, we have the same interest, you know, if I see somebody painting, I'm gonna be like, yo, it's like right away. So it's almost like the disingenuousness of just asking somebody who there's no like connection, we're grocery shopping, whatever, just like asking somebody how their day is or something is just that's kind of like one of my reservations or excuses, you know.
Well, the ego wants to interact with people that remind you of yourself, right?
Okay.
So that is something that is natural, that naturally occurs because we have an ego. To analyze somebody based off of like what they're presenting themselves as, and to say, this person most likely has no interest in me. Yes, it's an assumption. Your intuition could very well be right, you know. Like if there's a guy in a business suit, you know, and he, like maybe he looks like a real estate agent or something, you know, he's most likely not going to want to talk to me, the acupuncture yogi, you know, guy with the beard and the hair, you know.
Totally.
My intuition is probably right, but let's say he does, and he's like, oh, I've always wanted to try acupuncture. It would catch me off guard. It would, but there's only really one way to find out, you know, and it's putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
I think like there is a reality that a lot of people are suffering with severe self-conscious behavior, where they've isolated themselves within their body. They're just trapped in the body, and they feel so awkward. Social awkwardness is just part of that whole pattern. And isolating yourself like that, it leads to even more behavioral issues, low self-esteem, social awkwardness, maybe even self-destructive, self-sabotaging behaviors, issues around self-value. It sucks. It sucks that people are experiencing that. I wouldn't want anyone to experience that, but I know most people are experiencing that, I think.
Yeah, you think the majority of people are? Like,
I think there is, it's like 50-50. I think people go through most of their day not caring about anything or anyone, and then they spend the other portion self-loathing and being hypercritical and self-conscious of their self.
Yeah.
I can see that being a reality. And then you have someone on the total opposite end of the spectrum who's like narcissistic and sociopathic, and they are just, everything they do is to benefit their self, and they don't care who they're going to use. Then there's that. And then there are people who are genuinely inspired by and motivated by inner growth, spirituality, being kind, and having a beautiful human experience, and just adding to the beauty of life. And I think there is a movement towards that. It's a very small movement, like way less than 10% of this planet, way less. But I do think there is a movement in that direction that's palpable. You could feel it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's hope. Maybe we're hoping that becomes our experience. But I genuinely do believe that there is a population in the millions of people who want that. Now, how do we grow that? How do we get people out of the matrix and to see that you have this opportunity to have a beautiful life?
Yeah. Well, out of the matrix, is it really possible to get out of the matrix, though?
Yeah, I mean, it is, because the matrix is like a social construct that's driven by fears and egotistical desires, but there's also like elements of domination and control that's containing it in a system that feels like a prison. So it's almost like voluntarily imprisoning yourself by becoming part of this system and abiding by all of its guidelines, right? It's like going on social media. Social media is its own world.
Yeah.
It has its own rules. You play by the rules, you get to stay, you get to post what you are allowed to post, right? You can't post wherever you want. So there's certain rules. So it is like a matrix. And the world has the same thing. What's socially acceptable, what's not socially acceptable, what's going to cause harm. Those are things that we want to stay away from, right? But the matrix doesn't mean anarchy. I mean, escaping the matrix doesn't mean anarchy. It just means that we're not allowing the constraints of that system to burden us in a way where we can't seek something beyond it, something higher, some form of enlightenment, some liberation from the suffering that's felt within that system.
Yeah.
It's really confusing what I just said.
No, I'm linking it to like just little like not getting that real satisfaction in life, and just sort of going back to the whole stimulation thing, like just getting these like hits of like type of thing.
A lot of us are dopamine addicts now.
Exactly, that's what I'm sort of. So that almost to me sounds like more of a matrix, like that. Like that's at least one aspect of it.
Well, yeah, and those social media platforms are designed based on those physiological responses that human beings have. That's how you know that it's planned and people are being manipulated, because they designed an entire system around it to, you know, trap people in it. Like they know that, oh, this is how humans behave. Let's herd them into this area, like cattle. You know, we'll get them looking at pictures all day.
Yeah.
And then we could sell them things because they'll feel desperate and lonely and unwanted, and they'll be comparing themselves to others. So now they're more likely to buy these products that may fulfill them in some way.
Just for a moment.
Yeah, momentarily fulfill them.
So do you think the answer is like turning back to sort of the days of not having social media? Like, do you think the answer would be just to almost just like cold cut deny it, or is it? I feel like it might be too late for that almost.
You know, that would fall under in the realm of renunciation, right?
Yeah,
Doing away with it is what will liberate me, right? But we know it exists, you know?
Yeah.
I think everything is managing desires. It's okay to desire whatever you desire, but some of the things people desire could cause harm to themselves. So obviously you have to reel yourself in there and say, dude, you know, yeah, I have this desire, but this feels dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with you know, social media.
Yeah,
I have a desire to see what all of my friends are doing on social media, but it's dangerous. How much do I want to know?
Yeah.
Do I see all of this and then I'm more reluctant to actually have a relationship with them outside of social media?
That's big. That's a big thing that I see a lot is like, oh, I don't even need to talk to this person now. I'll just freaking watch their story all day.
Right.
And it's just like, what the, you know? Yeah. I love when I actually talking to my friends.
Right.
And I know there's some people who I wish I would talk to more. You know, they just freaking watch my social media all day.
Yeah, I think that is 100% true.
Yeah.
That people will, like, instead of calling you, they're like, oh, he made a post on social media, so he's probably fine. You know? Meanwhile, you could be like dying on the other end, and this post is just some cry for attention, and nobody even knows that you're suffering, but you know, your own friends haven't reached out to you in 5 years because they see you on social media.
Totally. Yeah. Or at least haven't reached out to you in a genuine way.
Right.
They'll reach out to you, but it's not like anything that's like, hey, let's like really talk and get into it, you know?
They'll send you hugs.
It'll just, or like a meme. They'll send you like some other shit on social media.
I know. I had a friend who I don't really talk to anymore because our whole communication would be that person sending me memes and me ignoring the memes. Because I would be like, why do you even know who I am? Right? And that's the ego too. Expecting someone to know who you are is still the ego, but when you're friends with somebody for a pretty significant amount of time, there are certain expectations. I expect this person to know enough about me to know that I don't care about this Magic Johnson meme or, you know, SpongeBob.
Right.
Like, why would I care about that?
Right. It's almost like offensive. Like, you're not even laughing at it. You're almost like, just look at it and you get offended because you're like, oh, you think I'm this, like, this surface level? Like, so.
Yeah, and is he selecting these memes just for me?
Right.
Or is everyone getting these memes?
Right.
You know, am I just a needle in the haystack of memes?
Yeah, I mean, they're not sending you acupuncture related,
no,
holistic, like,
no,
you know.
Well, that's actually funny that you bring that up because, you know, during COVID, you know, I'm a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine. Traditional Chinese medicine has survived for a minimum of 6,000 years. It's probably more like 8,000 years. You know how many pandemics there were over the course of 8,000 years? A lot.
100.
We use herbal formulas that treated COVID just fine, you know. No one I knew on a personal level asked me for any advice. Nobody. And I would think, like, do they not know what I do? Do they not care? Do they not trust me because they knew me when I was 13 years old? All of those similar questions would arise because, my ego was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, why didn't they reach out to me about COVID?
Right.
I'm the expert. Why didn't they contact me? So
yeah,
it's just another facet of all of these assumptions that our mind makes, all of these conclusions we jump to, and how social media is just a level of disassociation that's in between all of those things.
mm-hmm.
Like, this is the tool for you to disassociate even more from actual reality, and now you're living in a reality of assumptions and generalizations, and I don't think it's the greatest.
Yeah, it's true. A tool for dissociation. That's
Yeah.
probably the best, clearest definition I've heard of social media in a long time.
It's great, and I would tell a lot of people that I have this quote that the downfall of society is in the comments. Have you ever gone on
They're
a post?
funny, but yeah.
Some of them are hysterical, but have you ever gone on a post and you just go right to the comments because they're going to be ratchet?
It's 100%.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
That right there. Those are things that you would never say to somebody in person.
Yeah.
So that's where the disassociation comes from. Like, you could just post something. Somebody could post something and you could comment on their post and be like, you're a scumbag,
Mm.
But would you really do that to them in real life? Would you have the nerve to say that to them in public? Usually not.
Right. Well, it's almost just like a hypothetical situation, like you said, like it's removed from reality. So it's like now I could just comment on it as like a capsule of something that really, like in my mind, I almost like don't even have to believe that it really happened.
Yeah.
It's like it's just kind of like a TV
Right.
episode.
It's not in the real world. It's on
Yeah.
this social media
And
world.
the trippy part is in the real world.
It
So
is,
it's like
'cause
what
they-
the.
Yeah, because there's a person behind that
Right.
post that
Right.
is reading what you're writing to them, and it doesn't feel good.
Right.
There were a lot of celebrities that would say, I would read the comments that people would make on my videos, and they would be really deeply hurt and offended, and they would have to stop looking at the comments.
Yeah.
But there's comment wars going on. I mean, what about the term ratioed, right? It's like if you get more people dislike your post than like it, or more people prove you to be wrong than for you to be right, and that's what ratioed is. Like, this is a thing. People are going around bragging about ratioing people.
Mm.
I heard somebody the other day at the Kava bar. I ratioed the CEO of, I don't know.
Any CEO.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, man.
Congratulations, Like, there's like some honor in tearing somebody apart.
Yeah, I know. I wonder. Yeah, there's got to be some sort of spiritual thing going on there.
Well, there definitely is.
Some imbalance.
I mean, I've said it to you like many times. Like, behind these habits and behaviors is some type of dark entity
Yeah.
that feeds off of the negativity.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever you believe, I'm telling you that this happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's exposed a lot in hypnotherapy. I'm sure a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists have experienced these phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
but there is something else behind those habits and behaviors that is feeding off of it.
Mm.
In Chinese medicine, we call it a ghost possession. There are even points on the body called ghost points that we use to treat those things.
Mm.
So whenever you're doing something that you shouldn't do, or you shouldn't say, it is feeding some kind of evil,
Yeah.
actually. And that
Yeah.
evil controls you through guilt and shame.
Right, and there's almost a level of like submission that you have to it to actually do the thing. Like, you almost know in the back of your head, like, this is going to, at least if you're spiritually conscious, like, like this is going to be eating something. Like you have that knowledge before you do it.
Some people do.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and people with more spiritual knowledge, they should know. Maybe they should know that. Maybe they don't. But yeah, you might have a feeling, especially if you're somebody who lives with like God in their life. You know, obviously, when you're doing something that God wouldn't really like, you know, I always say behave as if you are constantly in God's presence. That'll save you from doing a lot of really stupid shit.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of stupid things. Yeah, behave as if you are always in God's presence, because you are. And, you know, God doesn't necessarily have to mean like a biblical God or a man in the sky or some deity. I'm talking about the universe. I'm talking about the metaphysical laws that respond to us because they exist. We've all felt it. You know, we have to stop relying solely on some scientific explanation for these spiritual phenomenon that people have experienced in their lives. Like, you could probably go to 100 people and ask them, have you ever had a spiritual experience? How many people do you think would say yes?
I think most people, like adults, like,
yeah.
You know, kids wouldn't probably know what you're talking about.
Right. But if you went to like a scientist and you asked them, have you ever had a spiritual experience? They may be more reluctant to admit it.
Right, yeah.
Right? Yeah. The whole presence of science consuming society, like you need this undeniable burden of truth. It takes away from our subjective reasoning and our intuitive beliefs.
Yeah.
And it takes hope out of our lives. Hope and faith. You know, now they need there's a person out there that needs undeniable proof.
Right.
Like I had a hypnotherapy patient today who was like, I need to experience something first in order to believe it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I could easily say to him, well, do children exist? Yes. Have you ever given birth to a child? Well, I'm a man, I can't do that. Okay, so is that something that you have to experience in order to believe? You could easily like dismantle that way of thinking, but there is also truth in what he's saying, that I need this undeniable evidence before I could get on board with something. Yeah. And I think a lot of people operate that way now because of the mainstream, you know, that scientific influence that is being kind of indoctrinated in everybody.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's both, you know. There's the science is really interesting and opens new gateways and passages, and and the spirituality aspect gives it like a little bit more of a, you know, it's like they say that spirituality and religion has known things that science is like just discovering, like that whole thing.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, science is amazing. It's helped billions of people. You know, there's a lot of science that backs medicine and healing in general, you know, and this is a way for us to help people to feel comfortable doing something like, oh, there's science that backs it up. Okay, I feel more comfortable. But I think that people, they don't believe the way they used to believe. You know, I think like you can even see that with religion. Say what you want about organized religion, but let's be honest. Less people are participating in organized religion than they did maybe 100 years ago. Yeah. I would say. I mean, I wasn't here 100 years ago. But I'm assuming that more people were religious. You know, that was a big part of society, was religion. Yeah. I've said to my wife before that when I was a little kid and I participated, you know, and I'm Jewish, so I would go to temple. But when I participated in that with my family, we actually had a much better life. Our life was much more financially stable because these things instill like morals and ethics into people's lives, into the family. You know, they tend to value families over like, you know, not having a family and just having temporary relationships. You know, that's a big thing now, is the whole you know, what is it called? Like, I'm thinking of the dating world, but I'm thinking of something hookup culture.
Yeah.
Hookup culture. You know, I don't think hookup culture existed when religions were more prevalent in society.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are examples here and there, but I get what you're saying. Like the overarching thing was, you know, was following more of a religious path. It was more mandatory. Like it was just in the, it was just in the, like the inner workings of that society at that time.
Yeah, of the family unit. Yeah. You have a family. You participate in your organized religion.
Yeah.
You act, you know, morally sound, and you become a healthy, useful instrument in society.
Yeah.
And I think that has been going, I think we're getting too far from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why you see so much chaos in the world.
Right. You know, and we'll, like, it depends, I guess, on what circle you're in, but I feel like even like us, like we sort of drifted away from religion and got back into it. So in a way, it's like, you know, like there's a departure and there's like a return, you know, and
yeah.
I feel like I do see a return in a lot of people in a lot of circles. Maybe that's just because I'm at yoga studios all the time, and you know, but
and also we practice yoga and, you know, other more philosophical or spiritual based traditions are what we're you know, interested in, rather than organized religions and participating in that way. But this practice is something, it's a tool for us to become kind, loving, caring, genuine and generous, compassionate people. Thank God for this practice.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what I would be like without this practice. It's scary to think about it.
Yeah.
There was a push, a movement for more people to start joining these yoga communities, and then I feel like it kind of plateaued.
Yeah. My practice has gotten more like, it's almost an entity of its own. It's almost like a dear friend when I start my asana practice. You know, it's just, I can't explain how grateful I've been for it over the past 3 years that I've been seriously practicing. You know, it just, at first it's like, this is cool, and then you kind of like, it's fun, you know, and then next thing you know, it's like your best friend. It's really an amazing thing, you know, and I'm talking about specifically like the asanas in yoga.
Absolutely. I think the most valuable aspect of the movement practice is how grounded you feel, and a clear difference in how the energy in your body feels before and after doing asana practice.
Yeah.
Like, even if you just do bow pose every day and extend your spine and open up all the vertebrae in your spine is responsible for the vast majority of your physical health. Your entire nervous system is in your spine. If you have anxiety, you should be doing back bends all the time to open up and lengthen your spine. All of that compression is just, you know, holding everything in. It's holding all of your suffering in.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, last night I just did the most basic practice, mostly floor poses.
Cool.
But I make sure that at the end I hold bow pose for as long as I can, and afterwards my energy is clear.
Dude, I love that pose.
I can sleep better.
Oh yeah.
I digest better.
Nice, dude. I'm really glad to hear that you're doing that.
Yeah, not every day, you know, but
yeah, when you feel it.
Yeah, I used to have a daily practice, but I don't know. You move in different directions sometimes. I look at my yoga practice now as relationship yoga, where I try to perfect the conversations that I have with the people who come into my practice in a way that I'm holding space for them in a kind, loving, compassionate way, and I'm not distracted by invasive thoughts or my own desires to either control or get something, get some kind of outcome. Like, for instance, I want to win this person over so they definitely come back. I don't do that anymore. The fact that they ask me for another appointment is confirmation enough that I held space in a way that made them feel that I was valued. It made them feel that I was valuable to them, and that made me feel valued. Right? That's all you need. When you when you make that into your practice, it's going to change your life. Like it's going to able you to really value all of those interactions, even with the person at the gas station or whatever. That you being kind to them, that might be the only kindness they've experienced in days. Even just having that little glimmer of hope for humanity, it might be something that could have prevented them from going down a really, really dark road and doing something that maybe could have been self-harm. They could have harmed themselves, and you saved them. Who knows?
Yeah, that's why COVID was such a dark time with these face masks. I'm so glad that's over, you know? It just made everything so much more like, who is this person? Like, it put up another layer of conversation blocking.
And that was probably part of the plan.
Right, yeah.
Your vagus nerve, it gives you a sense of well-being when you could recognize a familiar face. So when somebody is masking their face and they appear to be unfamiliar to you, it puts you in a fight or flight nervous system response, actually. And when you're in that response, your immune system isn't working. So it was actually doing the opposite of protecting you. It was enabling your immune system from working effectively. And I don't think that that's talked about enough, but it is a true fact. So, all right.
Cool.
Yeah, man. Well,
cheers.
Well, this was the first episode of our podcast, Higher Dimensions. Once again, I'm Coyote Panda.
I'm Jackson.
And thank you guys for showing up for us. We will continue to show up for you once a week.
Thank you guys. Much love.
Namaste.